I was walking by a donut shop this morning, or a pastry shop. It's about 6:45 this morning. And I was going to get a donut first because that was recognizable. Then I saw this, it looked even better. But I don't know whether it's filled with meat or whether it's filled with pastry kind of like stuff. So we'll find out in a moment. Here there will not be the spectacular. I'm not even sure if there will be interesting architecture here. This is a very poor country trying to recover from a very bad time. Over there behind that statue of somebody are the front rows of the market where you'll pay the highest price. I learned yesterday. I paid $4 for, the equivalent of $4 for some grapes because they're probably imported. But back in there is the rest of the market where the most local produce is, and it's back in there that I'll go shopping later today. All along this street, which leads up to my hostel, are cafes, but also I see a lot of our casinos of some sort, like this place, which is an irony, of course, in poor places where, including the United States, where people will spend their few extra monies in the hopes that they can win big. And there across the street, Casino Row, that's another place. Fairly easy to orient yourself, at least in the downtown Tirana, because there's the clock tower, one of the oldest buildings in Tirana, and beyond it and on it is the square, and that minaret, of course, is for that mosque that I was in yesterday. I can't pronounce it. And there's the First American Hospital. I'm going to go to the left here to find the Tanner's Bridge, an old bridge reminiscent of the designs in China, that arched over the river kind of design. And as to this thing, I haven't figured it out yet. Some hints, maybe meat in there, but I can't be sure. It's not bad, it's not good. It's kind of neutral in taste. It's fairly heavy, so I suspect it'll be rather filling, and you can see what look like the strands or fibers of meat. Okay, just to orientate you, to the right up here is where my hostel is. I've just walked down to this intersection dead center, hung a left there. Actually, I came through the back streets, and I'm working my way down this street. So here's a little park I'm going to that's nicely restored, and this area, pedestrianized, is nicely restored for a country as poor as this country is. This is an interesting little spot for me to stop, just a small point, but it gives an idea of some of the countries that have affected this town. Most recently, George W. Bush, that's the sign right there at the top. This is the street we're on, this is the first. And Topani is the name of a famous and powerful family early on in the town of Kruzia, which I'll be going to, which was Skanderberg's birthplace. This is a public building with nice grounds, and it's right alongside, or embedded actually, inside this park. As I've commented before, to me, one of the rubrics of a aspiring city, if not fully developed, is its parks, because to me that represents, if you will, the soul of their aspirations, at least. And they may be modest and they may be simple, but their attempt to create some space where people can find refuge is, in my opinion, important. I'm continuing down this street, no doubt becoming lost, since I don't work very hard at not being lost when I'm on my first few days. But I thought this building was somewhat interesting. Some muted yet pretty colors. And apparently this city is typified by brilliant use of colors, which to me is a way of very quickly reflecting and restoring your spirits, if you will, with limited funds, in fact. Just sloppily trying to interpret what this sign might say. It's a reference, a monument to territory communist, it looks like. So this seems to allude back somehow to 1944. It may have been the time that the communists defeated the Nazis, and then the country got ready for its communist era. The typical sequence of tragedy in Eastern Europe. And down the street, a little bit of the idea of the use of color to jazz things up. It may seem trite, it may seem kitsch, however you pronounce that. but I don't think so. I thought it would be nice to walk down through the park, but as is the case in some places, it's really a refuge for the poor, and this portion of the park not maintained at all. It's interesting how this business residential building has created some novelty in design by those horizontal paint treatments. Here near the rather modest lava river, if that's how it's pronounced, and I have no clue, a building that looks like it has some faux detail on it. But again, anything that improves is good. And here this restaurant complex in here is being restored. And a magnificent tree that is. Look at the size of that. And that's the river area. And this is the Tanner's Bridge. Treated with modicum of respect. Here almost zero. But imagine the history, imagine the loads, imagine the lives that it's carried over its top. Over who knows how much time. And you can walk it, so I will. It's interesting to look at. I notice that there's devices here for this metal devices for holding the bridge horizontally intact. I always wonder what a niche like that is for. Could it allow extra water to flow or something when there was really a high runoff? And what's that little niche for? This is the upstream side, as we can tell by this device here, which is designed to split the water and split logs and debris off to either side so it doesn't damage the structure of the bridge itself. But it must have been a pretty one when it was new and used. Notice how it arcs around to the right where the road must have been originally. So here we get to experience a little bit of history. Probably just a little bit of the very old history that's left, or at least in evidence. And how much like China this bridge is. I've walked back over the bridge to try and pick up this minaret in the back, which has a very modern look to it, with that almost stainless steel cone at the top. I'll wander over there and get a better look. I'm going to wander up here and find a bridge that crosses over. Well, there's one right across the street. I'm looking upstream right now on the Lanë River, not the same river that would have gone underneath that Tanner's Bridge we just looked at. And while I turn around to show the downstream view, I want to notice how old and ratty these buildings look, even with their paint. They must have looked interesting at one time, but not now. At least not up close. This is the downstream run. It is good that they've restored the river along the area along the river here. Again, adding a pretty element. Here I'm looking back up to the bridge I crossed where that woman is crossing. One of the problems here in Tirana, of which there are several important ones, is raw sewage or raw waste. And the smell of it in this river is overwhelming. A lady who is a city employee picking up trash along the green area here found some big newspapers, or big pieces of trash, i.e. newspapers, and then just walked down the river and threw those in, on that continuing eternal assumption of mankind that if you throw it in the river, at least it's gone somewhere and it's not your problem. Pretty much the way we think of toilets. I don't know what this is, whether it's lilac or what, I have no clue, but it's pretty, and pretty has to count. See, that's the park I walked down to. That's also the bums hangout, for lack of a better term, the homeless hangout. I'm walking down this way, opposite direction of where the Tanner's Bridge was. I'm interested in seeing on the right-hand side that remaining building that was left when the mayor tore down all the illegal stuff that was built on this right side of where I'm going, and was not torn down because a family under a blood feud was inside of it.